Hi guys, this is Days, as you might know, the handle that I use on Discord as well as on Magic the Gathering Online, which I just recently joined, mostly with the coronavirus and everything going on. And basically what I did, I just got this deck that you see in front of you right now. And I mean, there's other people who are probably doing a better job at explaining what the deck does, but I just want to give you a couple of my thoughts or flavor in this. So yes, let's see. So the whole reason to play Rug Painter mostly came down to, well, where does it come from first? First part is always Painter and Pyroblast, and in the end I always seem to come back to that because that is such a crazy good combination. Then since you already have Painter and Pyroblast, which is in essence always a meta pick to kill blue decks, which is of course very ironic because Rock Delver is one of our worst matchups. Then you play that with Grindstone, and then you combo out your opponent. Very easy to go with that is the Welder Gang, so the Engineers, Welders, as well as then when you go to blue, Emery. That's a really big pull because she is an insanely good turn one play, together with 3 artifacts or maybe an artifact land, and just the ability to keep getting your Lotus Petals back, to keep getting your countered artifacts back is really strong, as well as getting rid of some cards that you put on your deck with the best card in Legacy, Brainstorm. So there are a couple of interactions over there that you could use to your benefit. So for example, if there's cards that you want all the value and all the artifacts but also the spells, then for example with Brainstorm you could put the artifacts on top of your deck, and then with Emery or with Engineer or with Welder you could use them anyway, they're not lost to you. Alright, so I said I was going to keep this short, so I'll mostly focus on the other cards, not Oko, everybody knows that one. So Bolas' Citadel, this is a strange one where I use this card now and then before Oko came out and before the whole debacle with Underworld Breach, but also during the meta of Underworld Breach. Bolas' Citadel was really strong, really explosive, definitely because that was a meta that was, at least from my perspective, a little bit less focused on creatures, let's focus on mid-range and creature destruction. So this is a really strong card that can just get you a turn 2 kill if the opponent doesn't pay attention. This is also something that you will see in the league that I played, and of course a 5-0 league is a good excuse to actually, you know, share some with the community, share some joy and share some insights, and of course get some feedback. But Bolas' Citadel, play turn 1 Welder or whenever, and you play a Goblin Engineer, then you get Bolas' Citadel, and ideally you already have a Seated to Sign It or any of these artifacts in play, and then you can just weld that out immediately after Bolas' Citadel hit the graveyard. So basically if you have Welder and Goblin Engineer, and Goblin Engineer's resolves as well as its ability resolves, then maybe they would realize their mistake and cast a Swords to Plowshares on Goblin Welder in response to that. Engineer ability on the stack, doesn't matter, but when that one resolves you could just weld out your artifact that you already have in play for the Citadel and just start going through your deck, and that is pretty strong. As a one-off, maybe it should be a bridge, because I still need to look whether this helps the matchups you would already win anyway, and it should, for example, be an ensnaring bridge to help tip the matchups against decks that you actually have a bad matchup against. So then one other thing I always want to say is kind of a pet peeve of mine. I would always max out Lotus Petals before you max out Mox Opals. Or before you even start thinking about Mox Opals, because the petals are unconditional, and that is really, really important. It is just completely frustrating if you have one of these and they're not turned on. That is really, really useless. And then it beats the whole purpose of having this artifact, besides the fact that it's just an artifact. But then it might as well be a bauble or something like that. Okay, so moving on to the sideboard. Echoing Truth is one of our best sideboard cards all around. It dodges Chalice, it gets rid of multiple ley lines, multiple Chalice of the Voids, and it can hit anything. So, for example, it's also good against lands. So it can hit Lage, Merit Lage, it can hit Oofs, it can hit, well, you get it, but the part of it that could be seen as a downside is that it bounces something instead of destroying it. Well, it's good against Merit Lage. It is actually not such a bad thing. Usually you can just set things up and then just wait till the turn that you're going to do something, cast it at the end of their turn, and then go wild on your turn. The 4 bolts, this is something that I got from the time playing Strawberry Shortcake, and it is really, really important in the matchups where people play Oof, Collector's Oof, or Delver matchups. It is really important to get rid, for example, of other opposing Karns. I can't stress enough how much of a stress relief this card is. Now, Veil of Summer, I don't play this one main because I think it's way too conditional, and you just cannot have too many cards that are way too conditional in your deck. So the thing, for example, with Pyroblast, which is another one of those conditional cards, is that and you can be proactive with this card. That's very, very important. So say, for example, you need to get rid of a specific permanent, you just find your Painter, you use your Pyroblast, and you're good. And that is something that turned out, for me at least in my experience, to be very valuable, and that's something that you cannot do with Veil of Summer. It's too much waiting for that one specific moment when they are going to counter something that you have, and then you can play it. That's great, but it just sits in your hand for way too long, in my experience. Sylvan Library, this is the perfect card in grinding matchup. In grinding matchups, as well as in matchups where your life total doesn't matter until it does. So there are some matchups that are very binary, but you that are not as explosive as, for example, Reanimator. Reanimator, you don't have time to play this card. But in other matchups, I mean, just say something, for example, say the Painter mirror match, where your life total gets grinded down little by little, then you can afford just using this even as a 2 mana, pay 8 life, draw 2 cards, and then sort out your other stuff. It's actually a very strong card, but of course the typical usage of it is to use against control, where it really shines. Now, Tormod's Crypts, I'm using 3 of them. I don't play Karn, so this is actually a pretty important one to have multiples of, because you really need to see it in your games against decks like Reanimator. Usually Dredge is okay, you don't see it around that much anymore, or other graveyard based strategies, but yeah, I've been happy with 3 of them. I actually used 4. Grindstone, this card, yeah, you can already see this is kind of a suboptimal deck list here, where I still have this Grindstone. This could probably be a different card. It should be a different card. Then, of course, the Ensnaring Bridge, as well as Ensnaring Bridges for Delver matchups, for example, as well as Sneak and Show, as well as things like Reanimator, where Reanimator you might not really need it, but lands, for example, as well. Trinisphere is one of your only outs against storm-based strategies, and I have to say that in general this deck is a bit weak against storm-based strategies, because in a sense it's all about the Trinisphere. Alright, so I will probably change a couple of things in this deck. As I said, Bolas the Citadel, maybe get rid of it in favor of an Ensnaring Bridge, even though I really like that one. Grainstone, probably get rid of that one in favor of maybe a Return to Nature or a Karn 2 as a bomb, but I'm not just sure what would work better against Delver, which is one of the worst matchups right now. So maybe even a third Veil would be good there, besides those Lightning Bolts, maybe a Red Elemental Blast. That would actually not be such a bad one. Alright, that's it for now. Thank you.